The wind howled fiercely through the ruined walls of the ancient castle as Prince Eldrick stepped inside, his breath heavy with anticipation. The night was dark, shrouded in mystery and the weight of what was to come. Hidden within the castle's depths lay a chamber that had not seen light for centuries, holding the secrets of his fate. With each step, the air grew colder, and an unsettling chill seemed to whisper through the stone. Eldrick had heard the stories of his lineage's curse, a dark force that hung over his bloodline like a shadow. But tonight he was finally going to confront the truth. The prophecy had always seemed like a distant legend, something meant for other kings, other kingdoms. Yet, as his fingers brushed the ancient door, his heart quickened. He felt something stirring, a power that seemed to pulse with his every movement. As the door creaked open, a forbidden voice echoed through the chamber. "The curse is yours to break, or the kingdom shall fall." Eldrick's knees buckled for a moment as the weight of the words settled in. The cold touch of destiny had arrived. The air grew heavier, and the mist swirling around Eldrick seemed to carry with it an ancient power. The silhouette before him began to take shape, revealing itself to be a figure cloaked in darkness. Eldrick's breath quickened as the figure spoke in a low, resonant voice. "The curse is yours to bear, Prince Eldrick. Your bloodline is doomed." His heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the prophecy sinking in. "Only you can break it, or let it consume you." Eldrick could feel the power of the curse, ancient and unyielding, wrapping around his very soul. But he refused to be afraid. "What must I do?" Eldrick demanded, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his inside. The figure raised a hand, pointing to the far corner of the room. "Find the key. But be warned, the journey ahead will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Choose wisely." Eldrick stepped closer, determination burning in his chest. "I will break the curse, no matter the cost." The figure's laughter echoed ominously, and Eldrick's heart sank. "You are naive, Prince. The curse has claimed many before you." As the words lingered in the air, a sudden gust of wind swirled around Eldrick, pushing him back. The torch flickered wildly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "But you are the chosen one," the figure said, its voice softer now, tinged with regret. "The fate of the kingdom lies in your hands. You must make a choice." Eldrick clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the responsibility press down on him. "What choice?" he asked, his voice unwavering. "Only you can decide how this story ends." With those final words, the figure began to fade into the mist, leaving Eldrick alone with his thoughts. Eldrick stood in the now empty chamber, the air still heavy with the presence of the mysterious figure. The weight of his task crushed him as he stared at the spot where the entity had been moments before. "What am I supposed to do?" he whispered to himself. He had always known that his lineage carried a curse, but never before had the reality of it felt so real, so immediate. The kingdom he loved was slowly falling into ruin, and it was all tied to the curse that haunted his bloodline. The thought of failing terrified him. But deep down he knew he had no choice. The path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it was his path to walk. The very future of his people depended on his strength, his resolve. "I will break this curse," he vowed, his voice firm, yet uncertain. But just as Eldrick began to steady himself, the shadows in the room seemed to stir, and a new presence filled the air. Something ancient, something darker than he could ever have imagined. The real test was about to begin. Suddenly a loud crashing sound echoed through the chamber, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. Eldrick spun around, his sword drawn, ready to face whatever was coming. His mind raced. Had the curse already manifested, or was something else at play? The footsteps grew louder, and from the darkness a figure emerged. This one was not cloaked in shadows, nor was it some ancient presence, but a living, breathing person. The newcomer's appearance was startling. A young woman with fire in her eyes and a sense of purpose in her stride. "You seem to have a heavy burden on your shoulders, Prince," she said, her voice sharp, yet tinged with curiosity. "I've been sent to aid you, though I'm not sure you'll want my help." Eldrick's grip tightened on his sword as he studied her carefully. She was no ordinary traveler. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman smirked. "I am Lyra," she replied, her eyes never leaving his, "and you'll need all the help you can get if you want to survive what's coming." Eldrick was not sure what to make of Lyra. Her sudden appearance, though unexpected, brought him some relief, yet a deep part of him remained suspicious. He had trusted few people in his life, and even fewer had shown true loyalty. Lyra, with her fiery spirit and confident demeanor, seemed different from the allies he had known, but could he trust her? As they walked through the dense forest towards the unknown destination she had promised, the air grew thick with an uneasy silence. Eldrick's mind raced, wondering if she had her own agenda. They had both been chosen by fate, but what that truly meant he couldn't say. "You've already chosen your path, Prince," Lyra said with a half-smile, "but don't expect it to be an easy journey." Her words, though light, carried an unspoken weight. There was something she wasn't telling him, and Eldrick couldn't help but feel like the true battle was yet to come. As they continued their journey deeper into the forest, Lyra turned to Eldrick with a serious expression. "You know, this isn't just about breaking a curse," she said, her voice unusually soft. "There's much more at stake than you realize." Eldrick looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked, sensing that her words held more significance than she was letting on. She paused before replying, her eyes glistening with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "There are forces beyond the curse," she began. "Dark powers, things that are tied to the very fabric of this kingdom. Your fate isn't just yours, Eldrick. It's linked to the balance of the entire realm." Eldrick felt a chill creep down his spine. "And you?" he asked, his voice low. "Why are you helping me?" Lyra glanced at him, her smile returning, though it was less confident this time. "Because you're not the only one with something to lose." Eldrick couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The more Lyra spoke, the more questions seemed to rise in his mind, but he held his tongue for now. The journey had only just begun, and he didn't want to alienate the one person who might help him unravel the mystery of his curse. Still, he couldn't ignore the nagging thought that Lyra's intentions weren't entirely pure. She had a hidden agenda, one that she wasn't willing to share yet. As they approached the heart of the forest, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing that looked untouched by time. The air was thick with the scent of ancient magic, and Eldrick could feel the ground beneath his feet shift. "Stay alert," Lyra warned. "We're close." But before he could respond, a sudden rustle in the bushes caught their attention, and the world seemed to freeze. Someone, or something, was watching them. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man, tall and cloaked in black, his features hidden beneath a dark hood. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice deep and threatening. Eldrick stepped forward, his hand tightening on his sword. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man chuckled darkly, stepping into the moonlight. His face was cold, with sharp features and piercing eyes that seemed to look right through Eldrick. "My name is Corvus," he replied, his tone flat and emotionless. "I've been sent to make sure you don't complete your mission." Lyra tensed beside Eldrick, her hand resting on a dagger hidden in her belt. "You're with them," she said, her voice filled with contempt. "I knew you couldn't be trusted." Corvus ignored her, his eyes locked on Eldrick. "The curse you seek to break is not just a simple spell, Prince. It's a chain that holds everything together. If you break it, you will destroy more than you realize." Eldrick's mind raced. This Corvus, whoever he was, clearly knew more about the curse than he let on. "What do you want from me?" Eldrick asked, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Corvus smirked. "What I want doesn't matter," he replied. "What matters is that you understand the consequences of your actions. Break the curse, and everything you hold dear will be destroyed. The kingdom, your people, the very land itself." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes narrowed. "And what happens if we don't?" she asked. Corvus's smile faded, as his expression turned grim. "You will live, but you will be slaves to the curse. You will never know peace." Eldrick's mind spun as he absorbed Corvus' words. Was there no way out? Was the curse truly the only thing keeping the kingdom together? There was only one thing he knew for certain. Corvus wasn't here to help. The forest was unnaturally quiet as Eldrick and Lyra continued their journey deeper into the heart of the enchanted woods. The air was thick with magic, making it hard to breathe, as if the trees themselves were watching them. Suddenly, a strange sensation overtook Eldrick, a prickle at the back of his neck. He stopped in his tracks. "Do you feel that?" he asked Lyra, his voice low. Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "It's her," she whispered. "The sorceress. The one I warned you about." A chill ran through Eldrick as he realized they were close. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the forest around them twisted in unnatural ways, the trees bending inwards, as if they were leading them to something. Ahead, a clearing appeared, bathed in a pale, sickly light. There, standing in the center, was the sorceress, her figure tall and imposing. She was surrounded by dark magic, her eyes glowing with an eerie light. "You have come far, Prince Eldrick," the sorceress said, her voice echoing around the clearing. "But you cannot escape your destiny." Eldrick's heart pounded in his chest as the sorceress stepped closer. "You should never have come here, Prince," she continued, her voice a mix of mockery and menace. "The curse you seek to break is the very thing that binds this land together." Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting on the hilt of her dagger. "We've come to end it, to free this land from your dark magic," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of fury. The sorceress laughed softly, the sound echoing through the clearing like a distant storm. "You think you can undo what has been done?" she asked, her eyes flashing. "The curse has roots deep in the very soul of this kingdom. It cannot be broken." Eldrick stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "I don't care how deep it goes. I will break it." The sorceress's eyes narrowed, a look of amusement crossing her face. "Then you will die trying, just like the others before you," she whispered, raising her hands as dark energy began to swirl around her. The air crackled with power as the sorceress's magic swirled around them, dark clouds forming above the clearing. Eldrick could feel the energy pressing down on him, suffocating him. "This is your last chance, Prince," the sorceress said, her voice like a hiss. "Join me, and I will grant you power beyond your wildest dreams. You can rule this kingdom, control its fate, and break free from your cursed bloodline." Lyra's hand tightened around her dagger, and Eldrick stepped forward, his sword drawn. "I would rather die than be controlled by you," he said, his voice unwavering. The sorceress's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "So be it," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You will die here, just as your ancestors did before you." With a flick of her wrist, the dark energy surged towards them, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. As the sorceress unleashed her power, Eldrick barely managed to raise his sword in time to deflect the first wave of dark energy. The force of the blast sent him stumbling backwards, but he quickly regained his footing. "You are strong, Prince," the sorceress said, her voice dripping with mock admiration. "But strength alone will not save you." Eldrick's muscles ached from the impact, but he pressed on, charging towards her. "I don't need to be strong," he said through gritted teeth. "I just need to be faster." Lyra darted to the side, taking advantage of the distraction, and lunged at the sorceress with her dagger raised. But the sorceress saw her coming. With a swift motion, she summoned a shield of dark energy, knocking Lyra to the ground. Eldrick roared in anger, rushing forward with renewed fury, his sword glowing with magical light as he struck at the sorceress's shield. Eldrick's strikes grew more desperate as the sorceress effortlessly deflected each blow, her power growing stronger with every passing moment. He could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on him, threatening to crush him. "You cannot win, Prince," the sorceress taunted, her voice filled with dark amusement. "Your bloodline is cursed, and no matter what you do, it will always be your downfall." Eldrick's body was weary, his limbs heavy, but he refused to give up. "I will not let you destroy everything," he said, his voice hoarse. The sorceress's expression twisted into a cruel smile. "Then die trying," she sneered. With a final powerful blast of dark magic, she sent Eldrick flying across the clearing, crashing into the ground with a sickening thud. As the world around him spun, Eldrick fought to stay conscious. He couldn't give up now. He had to break the curse. For himself, for Lyra, and for the kingdom. Eldrick's body ached as he pushed himself off the cold ground, his hands shaking with effort. The sorceress's dark magic still pulsed in the air, but he had no time to recover. Lyra's voice, filled with desperation, broke through the fog of pain. "Eldrick, we have to go. This fight, this isn't something we can win." But Eldrick, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and resolve, shook his head. "We've come this far. I can't leave now. We have to stop her." He struggled to his feet, sword in hand, despite his exhaustion. But then the impossible happened. Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. "You don't understand, Eldrick," she said, her voice low and heavy with a truth she hadn't shared before. "I wasn't sent to help you. I was sent to stop you." Eldrick's heart skipped a beat, the world freezing around him. "What?" he breathed. Lyra's eyes softened with a mixture of regret and resolve. "I was promised something in return for your failure. The sorceress, she..." Her voice faltered, and for a moment, Eldrick thought he saw a flash of guilt in her eyes. But it was too late. With a swift motion, she drew a dagger from her belt and lunged at him, her betrayal cutting deeper than any sword ever could. The dagger's cold steel pressed against Eldrick's chest, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. His eyes locked onto Lyra's, searching for any sign that this was some cruel trick. But the hardness in her eyes left no room for doubt. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why, Lyra?" Her gaze softened for a fleeting moment, but the sorrow in her eyes was quickly replaced by determination. "I have my reasons, Eldrick," she said, her voice wavering but firm. "The kingdom has already fallen. The curse is too deep, and you..." She faltered, almost as if struggling with her own words. "You're the key to ending it, but I can't let that happen." Eldrick felt his heart shatter as the weight of her betrayal sank in. The one person he thought he could trust had been working with the enemy all along. "No," he said through gritted teeth. This isn't you, Lyra. You've been lied to. There's still a chance to save everything." But her expression never wavered, and she pressed the dagger closer, her resolve unshaken. "This is the only way," she said coldly, as her hand steadied the dagger for a strike. The silence in the clearing was deafening, broken only by Eldrick's labored breath. He could feel the weight of Lyra's betrayal in every fiber of his being. "You've made a terrible mistake," he said, his voice low but filled with the pain of betrayal. "You've chosen the wrong side." The dagger wavered in her hand, and for a brief moment, Eldrick thought he saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But before he could act, a cruel smile spread across her face. "It's too late for you to change my mind, Prince," she said, her tone venomous. "You're already too far gone." In a flash, the air around them grew heavier as the sorceress's dark magic intensified. The forest seemed to echo with the rising power of her curse. "No one can escape the curse," Lyra added. "Not even you." Eldrick felt the weight of her words sink deep into his chest, but in that moment, something inside him snapped. "Then I'll break it," he said, his voice filled with a new burning determination. He would not let Lyra, nor anyone, dictate his fate. Without warning, Eldrick acted. He grabbed Lyra's wrist, twisting her arm and forcing the dagger away from his chest. Her eyes widened in surprise, but her reflexes were quick. With a sharp movement she pulled away, ready to strike again. "You think you can stop me?" Lyra hissed, fury flashing in her eyes. "You're too weak." Eldrick's grip tightened around her wrist, his expression hardening. "You've been lied to," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "This isn't what you think. There's still a way out for you, for us. We don't have to be enemies." Lyra's face twisted with anger and confusion. "You don't understand, Eldrick," she spat. "I've already made my choice." And with that, she pulled free, pushing him back with a surge of dark energy from the sorceress. Eldrick staggered but didn't fall, his eyes never leaving hers. Then I'll make my own choice, he vowed, standing tall again. I'll break the curse, no matter the cost. Lyra stepped back, her eyes filled with cold determination. You don't get it, do you, Eldrick? She said, her voice softer now, almost sorrowful. I've already made my peace with this. There's no going back. Eldrick shook his head, fighting the pain in his chest. You're wrong, Lyra. There's always a way back. Always. The sorceress's laughter echoed through the clearing, cutting through the moment. You think you can fix everything? She taunted. The curse is in your blood, Eldrick. There's nothing left to save. But Eldrick's voice rang out with newfound strength. I will save this kingdom no matter the cost, he declared. And you'll regret the day you ever crossed me. With one last look at Lyra, Eldrick turned, the weight of the decision settling over him like a cloak of inevitability. He would face the curse head-on, alone if necessary. But he would not let it win. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow over the ruined temple that lay before Eldrick. The air was thick with dark magic, crackling and twisting with every breath he took. He could feel the presence of the sorceress, her power pulsing from within the temple's walls. Eldrick's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay focused. This was the moment he had been preparing for. I've come for you, Eldrick called, his voice cutting through the stillness. No more games, no more tricks. This ends tonight. A dark laugh echoed from within the temple. You think you can defeat me, Prince? The sorceress's voice hissed. You are nothing but a pawn in a game far beyond your understanding. Eldrick's grip on his sword tightened, and he stepped forward into the temple, his mind set on the task at hand. We'll see about that, he muttered, his voice steady but filled with determination. The moment of truth had arrived. No more running. No more doubt. It was time to face the darkness. As Eldrick stepped deeper into the temple, the walls seemed to close in around him, the air growing colder with each step. The temperature dropped, and the shadows stretched unnaturally, as if the darkness itself was alive. He could feel the sorceress watching him, her presence a constant weight on his chest. You are foolish, Prince. The sorceress's voice echoed from the shadows. Do you truly think you can defeat me? The curse you fight is a part of this world. It cannot be broken, no matter how hard you try. Eldrick's jaw clenched. Then I'll burn it all down, he said, his voice filled with resolve. I'll break the curse, no matter what it takes. The sorceress's laughter filled the temple, a chilling sound that made Eldrick's skin crawl. We shall see, she replied, her voice dripping with malice. Suddenly, the room shifted, the air thickening with magic as the sorceress's dark powers surged forward, crashing against Eldrick like a tidal wave. The sorceress's magic crackled in the air, dark energy swirling around her as she stepped forward, revealing her full form. Her eyes glowed with a cold, unfeeling light, and her robes fluttered as though caught in an unseen wind. You are nothing, she hissed, her voice sharp and venomous. Just a boy who thinks he can control fate. Eldrick stood tall, despite the weight of her words. I am more than you think, he said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. I will not let you control this world any longer. The sorceress smiled, a wicked, twisted smile that sent a chill down his spine. Very well, she said softly. Then, come and claim what's yours if you can. In an instant, she unleashed a torrent of dark magic that tore through the air like a storm, its force sending Eldrick stumbling backward. The ground beneath him cracked and split, and the temple itself seemed to tremble as the power of the curse threatened to overwhelm him. Eldrick's sword hummed with power as he deflected the sorceress's attack, his body pushed to the limit. The force of the dark magic knocked him back, but he recovered quickly, charging forward with newfound strength. You think your power can stop me? The sorceress sneered. You are just a child playing at being a hero. Eldrick's eyes burned with resolve as he pressed the attack. I am no child, he growled. And I'm not playing. With a surge of energy, Eldrick swung his sword, and the blade cut through the air, glowing with a magical light. The sorceress summoned a shield of dark energy to block his strike, but Eldritch's sword pierced through it, forcing her to stagger backward. She looked at him, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, but quickly masked it with fury. "You cannot win," she spat. "The curse will destroy you, just as it destroyed everything before you." Eldritch did not hesitate. "Then I will destroy the curse," he said, his voice filled with a fire that burned hotter than the dark magic around him. The ground shook as the sorceress staggered, her shield faltering under Eldritch's relentless assault. Her eyes widened in disbelief as Eldritch's sword struck again, this time cutting through her dark magic. "No," she gasped, her voice shaking with fury and fear. You cannot destroy what is already a part of this world." Eldritch's face was set in grim determination. "It's not too late to undo what you've done," he said, his voice unwavering. "You still have a chance to make things right." The sorceress's expression darkened, her eyes narrowing as she summoned every ounce of her power. "There is no redemption for me, Prince," she spat. "But there is no escape for you either." With a final cry, she unleashed her full power, a violent surge of dark magic that engulfed the temple in a blinding flash. Eldritch barely had time to react as the explosion sent him flying backward, his world turning to chaos. As the smoke cleared from the explosion, Eldritch slowly pushed himself to his feet, his body battered and bruised. But when the mist began to dissipate, his eyes locked onto something that froze him in place. Before him stood a familiar figure, one he thought was long gone, his mother, the Queen. "Mother," he whispered, his voice shaking with disbelief. You're alive." The Queen's eyes met his, cold and filled with regret. "I never wanted this for you, Eldritch," she said, her voice strained. "But the curse, it consumed me." Eldrich's breath caught in his throat as the truth began to unravel. His mother, the Queen, had been lost to the curse, transformed into the very thing they had fought against. "No," he whispered, his eyes welling up with tears. "How? Why didn't you stop it?" The Queen shook her head, the weight of regret heavy in her expression. "I tried to fight it, Eldritch," she said, her voice breaking. "But it was too powerful. The curse consumed me, twisted me into this." Eldrich's heart shattered as he realized the horror of his bloodline's curse. Eldritch took a hesitant step forward, his heart heavy. "I don't know what to do," he said, his voice hoarse. I can't fight you, Mother. You're still my mother." The Queen's gaze softened for a moment, but then hardened again. "You must," she said, her voice cold once more. "If you wish to save the kingdom, you must destroy me." Eldrich's chest tightened as he realized the sacrifice he was being asked to make. "But I can't lose you," he cried out, his voice breaking. The Queen's face grew solemn. "Then the kingdom will fall." A deafening silence filled the air, broken only by the soft wind rustling through the broken temple. Eldrich's mind raced, caught between the love for his mother and the responsibility he carried. "I can't kill you," he whispered. "I won't." The Queen's eyes flashed with an eerie glow. "You must. It is the only way to end the curse," she said, her tone cold, unfeeling. "The kingdom will fall if you don't. Your choice, Eldritch." A sharp pain seared through his chest, the weight of the decision crushing him. His heart broke as he slowly raised his sword. Just as Eldritch was about to make his decision, a surge of magic erupted from the Queen's hands, sending him flying back. "You will never have a choice," she hissed, her voice distorted by the dark magic coursing through her. Eldritch struggled to his feet, his chest tight with fear and rage. "I will end this," he declared, his voice unwavering. "I will save you, even if it means sacrificing everything." With a fierce cry, Eldritch charged forward, his sword crackling with light. He was ready to face whatever came next, even if it meant defeating the very person he loved most. The ruins of the temple were alive with dark energy, as Eldritch squared off against the Queen, his sword crackling with the power of his resolve. "You can't stop me, Eldritch," she sneered, her voice cold as ice. "You will never be strong enough to defeat me." Eldric's eyes burned with determination. "I will never stop," he vowed. "The curse ends tonight." With a roar, the queen unleashed her power, sending a wave of dark magic crashing toward him. Eldric held his ground, his sword raised in defiance. The final battle was upon them. The ground beneath them shook as the queen's magic collided with Eldric's sword. The force was so powerful that it sent shockwaves through the temple, crumbling the walls even further. "You can't win," the queen screamed, her voice filled with rage. "Curse will never die." Eldric gritted his teeth, pushing forward with all his strength. "I won't stop until it's over." With one final push, Eldric unleashed the full power of his sword, sending a blinding light into the heart of the queen's dark magic. The temple trembled, as if it too felt the weight of the battle. With a final heart-wrenching cry, Eldric poured every ounce of his strength into his sword. The light from his blade surged forward, cutting through the queen's dark magic and forcing her back. She staggered, her eyes filled with disbelief. "No, this can't be," she gasped, her voice weak. Eldric stepped forward, his sword still glowing brightly. "It ends now," he said, his voice steady. The queen's expression shifted from fury to sorrow as she realized the truth. With a final burst of magic, Eldric struck, severing the curse's hold on her once and for all. As the curse broke, the energy that had once bound the queen to darkness faded, leaving her collapsed on the ground. Eldric fell to his knees beside her, his heart torn. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears welling up in his eyes. The queen's hand reached out, trembling. "You were always the hero, Eldric," she whispered, her voice weak. "The kingdom is yours to save." With her final words, the queen's hand went limp, and the light in her eyes faded. Eldric stood, a mix of grief and determination in his heart. The battle was won, but the cost was greater than he had ever imagined. Eldric stood in the ruins of the temple, his sword lowered at his side. The curse had been broken, but the cost had been great. The kingdom was free, but at what price? He looked at the shattered remnants of his past, the temple, the ruins, the legacy of his bloodline. There was no going back, but there was still hope. "This is just the beginning," Eldric whispered to himself, his voice filled with a new sense of purpose. He turned, walking away from the temple, ready to rebuild what had been lost. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: he would never stop fighting for what was right.